All right, welcome everyone. I'm here with Faiza Liban. Did I say your last name correctly? I didn't even ask you that. Okay, cool. And I'm so excited to have her. Like I mentioned before, I'm doing a 4-part series on conscious leadership, intuitive leadership, and intuitively, Faiza was one of the first people that came to mind, came to heart. I was like, I got to talk to Faiza. So I'd love to start by just asking you to share with our audience a little bit about yourself so they can get to know you better.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure. And I love talking to you. I feel like we've connected over so much that is soul-filling for me. So thank you for having me. I'm so lucky to be here with you today.
Absolutely.
And I live in Miami. I have 2 children. One is 11 and one is 14. I am married and have been at home for a while now with my children, actually since my first daughter was born. And until 2 years ago when I started working on mindfulness type projects. So I see myself as a mindfulness facilitator and working to really connect with everybody and also ensure that we are helping parents and children use the skills they already have, but more develop them so that they can have a more conscious and mindful relationship with their children.
Beautiful. Okay. And then I know we met through the Dr. Shafali course, and I'd love to kind of hear your story about how did you kind of go on this journey of consciousness and mindfulness and, just what brought you to this moment?
So this is a really interesting one for me because I started meditating, I would say about 15, 16 years ago, and considered myself conscious in a way. And then we all know when we become parents.
Oh, yeah.
Things get shaken up. So I had my children, and I think I remember my older daughter being in 5th grade. And me just being at a level where I felt conscious. My kids were meditating with us every Sunday at a Buddhist center. And something was missing. And I'll tell you what that piece was. I was an over worrier. I wasn't happy with the education my children were getting. We were in a great school, amazing educators, but the education system was really it felt frustrating for me.
Yeah.
And then whenever the children were navigating something out of my comfort zone, I felt like I was becoming a little bit too conflicted over that too. And I knew at that point there was something missing. And a friend of mine said, "You've got to listen to Dr. Shafali." And I love Shafali. I know she's always on Oprah. One day I'll listen to her. But then there was this one incident, and I remember thinking, I am conscious, I am joyful, I'm compassionate, but something is missing, and I didn't know what that was. So I was listening to Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey's 21-day free meditation. And Oprah had mentioned Dr. Shafali again. And that was it. I said, okay, I'm going to reach out. I found that Dr. Shafali was organizing Evolve. And that was 2 weeks before Evolve. So it was too soon. But I bought her book, The Awakened Family. And I don't know how you responded to that, David, but I immediately signed up for her course, The Year of the Awakened Heart. And I tell you, on day 1, she said, this work is treacherous. And it was treacherous. I went inward and I realized that I needed to go inward and I needed to grow myself and I needed to nurture myself in order to step out of my children's way. And it was such a powerful awakening for me because I thought I was conscious, I thought I meditated, but one thing I hadn't planned on was the fact that my own unfinished business within me was impeding not only my progress, but the best I could give my children.
Right.
That was it.
Wow. Okay. And so you kind of went on this journey and you realized that meditation by itself and kind of doing some of this work was helpful, but it wasn't treacherous enough to take you to this next level of your journey. And So, I really wanted to talk to you. I actually don't know why I wanted to talk to you from like a logical standpoint. I just knew I wanted to talk to you. So we'll see what we talk about. But I do really feel like this podcast is all about intuitive leadership. And I feel like you're someone I see as a leader, and I see as someone who's very intuitive. And so how do you kind of go about your life with your intuition, and how do you make decisions on your projects, on where your kids are going to go to school, like these kind of real world decisions that, you can be making these decisions with the wrong lens, I like to say, and kind of get into a lot of troubles, or you can make the decisions from an intuitive lens and see that things can flow. So I'd just like to hear how you kind of navigate that.
So I'm really glad you asked this one, because I weed one thing out of the way. Anytime I have to weigh a decision, the pros and cons of making a decision, whether it's about my children or about my profession, or whether it's about anything that I'd like to endeavor, I decided there's only one person I usually had to weed out, and that was me. And what does that mean? If it's a decision about my children, I remember clearly the years I would make a decision based on not only how I was feeling about it, but what I thought it would do for my child. And now I pluck phaser out, and I sanitize, and I say, who is this for, and what will it do? How will it benefit this person, not me? And if it's a decision specifically about me and my career, or even who I speak with, I take me out of the equation. I say, how does this serve others? Where can we take this? Is this something everyone can relate to? Or is this, and we tend to do this, is this going to be self-indulging?
Right.
If it is, it's out of the question. And if it's something that is giving and is for others and it's universal, then I'm in.
Okay, so so I'm so curious now. So you take Faiza out of this. So do you have an example of something, like maybe a project you're working on, or a decision with your kids, or something like that might help us understand it?
I do.
Okay.
So
cool.
One example, I think, for my kids it comes up in many different variations actually, is that as parents, we are constantly balancing the form and the phoneless.
Right.
And they're equally important, especially during their formative years.
Yeah.
So I was more passionate, for example, about my children being balanced human beings who love learning, and not children who are enduring learning. And as a result, I almost became anti-public school education because of the way it was constructed.
Right.
And then the new Faiza became, this is what we have now. We have choices. We've chosen to stay. Let's get mommy's feelings out of the way.
Right.
But the kids still need to do well at school. So how do I balance this for them and say, all right, people, this is for your form. We call it the life bucket at home. So we say, all right, so this is your life bucket. And meaning, as you go through this life of form, you need school, you need an education, and you need to feel good knowing that you can achieve and take care of yourself later. So that's your bucket. And it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the fact that I've been tasked with the responsibility of guiding these humans to a productive place so that they can support themselves. So I do that. And then, but I also feel their formless bucket. So when they finish work, I'm big on, all right, you check that. Let's have fun. What do you want to do? Let's fill your other bucket. Would you like to go for a walk? Would you like to do art? Would you like to just sit and do nothing? So I am very conscious about their life bucket and their fun bucket. And we call it fun bucket because I say it's for them.
Right.
It's for them. Even if it's something that's, a sport that could be seen as a chore. One of my children lives for sports. So I know she is filling her bucket when she's exercising. So that's what I do with the children. If they're starting a new sport or something new, are they doing it for me? Or are they doing it for them? So that phase has changed so much that if they have nothing to do and they're home, but they're happy, I'm okay with that. So when it comes to me, I remember working on a project for myself called Global Minded Parents.
Mhm.
I was so attached to this project, but I also know, as useful as it is, and as useful a message it will always be, because it'll be a facet of my mindfulness facilitation, I made it bigger than it really was.
Mhm.
You know, I am the mom. I am the woman in the interracial marriage. I am the woman that wanted to use the model of my family to educate the world. And as much as there was a place for it, a place of service in the world for it, it meant too much to me. And I needed to sit down and say, who is this for? Is this for me? Or is this for the world? And now I know it is for the world, but not in its entirety. I don't have to dedicate everything to that. I can incorporate it into part of mindfulness and growth and consciousness, and it can be another facet of our lives.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool, and it makes a lot of now. I really do understand what you were saying about like clearing out Faiza. So tell us about the projects you're working on. So you have Global Minded Parent.
Yes.
And I know you're also doing some other projects and like mindfulness, mindful moments, or mindfulness with faith. You tell me, what are the other projects you're doing?
So Global Minded Parents is very much alive. And
Okay.
The concept behind that was, how can we raise a generation that is global, a generation that feels that they have the idea of oneness, not sameness, the idea of celebrating our differences, but not getting rid of them, and seeing each individual for who they really, really are, and celebrating that. So I think that's definitely still something that's much actually needed even more than ever before now. What I'm working on right now is, and I playfully call it mindful moments with Faiza, is it's having mindful dialogue, David. It's communicating in a way that's conscious and mindful. Because look at where we are today. Look at our world today.
Yeah.
And we are all a product of our conditioning. One is our generational conditioning, and the other is our collective conditioning.
Yep.
And we both know where we are collectively today. Look at our collective world. And I see people and I feel it. It's literally stress by osmosis.
Yep.
And so when I look at that, look at our politics, look at our racial division, I think to myself, what is true for us as a collective, and what is true for me as a person?
Yep.
And I have the humility to accept that what's true for me today and what's true, maybe true for you, David, it's not true for everybody.
Exactly.
So we're more fragmented than we ever were before. So this idea of coming up with it's a 3-week course that I'll be curating and I'll be sharing with you, send you more information on, is that to work on the 3 elements of mindful dialogue that I think could really change the way we see each other, the way we look at each other, and the way we connect with each other. So one of them is presence. For me to be able to have a meaningful conversation with you, I have to be here.
Yep.
And I see that in you. When we are in communication, I feel like we are fully there.
Yes.
Right? We're connected. Yes. We're nodding. So what do you think of that? I think that it's something that people do not consciously think about, that I would like us to be on purpose about.
Yep.
You know, and then the second element is awareness. And I think that when we are aware, when we are present, we can become aware. Once we have awareness, we can actually hear the other person.
Yes.
We can listen in for what they want to say to us.
About the autobiographical listening. I love that from, I think it was the 7 Habits, talks about everyone basically 99% of the world listens autobiographically, meaning that whatever you're saying, I'm just already thinking about how it connects to me, and then I'm going to say how whatever you said about me. And so the 7 Habits talks about, first, what is it? Seek first to understand, then to be heard. So it's like, first you really deeply try and understand what the person's saying before you try and say what you're trying to say, what you want to say.
Yes. Absolutely. And I love that. I don't think I read that, but I'll look it up. And
Oh, yeah.
so for me, it's more if I'm present, if I'm here, I can feel your energy. I
Mhm,
can be in that
mhm,
space with you.
mhm.
Number two, once I'm there, I can become more aware about what you're saying, how
Yes.
you're saying. But more importantly, David, I can be aware of my own body. What are your words
Mhm.
doing to me? How
Yep.
am I receiving you? And once I do that, I can respond to you in a way that I've heard your need to be
Mm,
heard. And one thing I've been practicing with the kids is just to say sometimes something like, hey, I just want to make sure that I got what you were saying to me.
mhm, mhm.
Yes. Can I just repeat what you said so I know you heard me?
Yes.
And they'll say, okay. Typically they'll look at me like that. They're like, okay. And I'll say, just it's more for me. I want to make sure
Mhm.
you were really heard so that if I respond, I'm giving it to you from a place of connection.
Yep.
And then the other person is heard. And in this environment today, if
Mhm.
we even stopped there, we've achieved a lot. We
Oh,
just
yeah.
go, okay, I don't agree with you, I think. We're not on the same page, but I really heard you.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
we can unpack it. And
Mhm.
for me, when we are unpacking it, that's when we really have fun. Is this person making an emotional request?
Right.
Are they
Right.
making a logistical request?
Mhm.
Are they making a professional work related response?
Mhm.
Are they seeking my emotional connection? Or are
Mhm.
they seeking my input in a practical way?
Mhm.
So I can really unpack it and say, okay, there's something going on here. Or are they really just looking to be heard and to be listened to?
Right. Right.
So I think these are really critical skills that I'd love to work with parents on.
Mm. And
you know
everyone.
and
Everyone.
everybody, I tell everybody, forget parenting. I've become the temperature of this house. If I don't hear my husband,
Mhm.
I've missed out on a complete
Yeah.
huge opportunity to connect with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we really hear other people, it becomes less about I and more about us.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we go from the me to the we, and we
Mhm.
forget that if that your child came in with a tantrum, or your wife or your partner came in with an issue, instead of seeing it as kind of, oh my God, here we go again, more
Yep.
conflict, it
Mhm.
just takes one of us. If someone's here, it takes one of us to stay here,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
then you hear them and you hear that person, you watch them come back down, and you're like, oh, hi, I see you.
I
So
love it.
that's what I'm excited about right
Yes.
now, to really pass these skills on to parents. And
Yes.
because we, the parents, really are responsible for shaping the next generation. If
Oh,
we
absolutely. Yeah.
give them these skills, you see how they'll relate to each other that way.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping at least that when they're adults, they will have another level of consciousness, that just another layer we didn't have.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I
that's
love
what's
that.
firing me up right now.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And I feel like it's so just accurate, like around, so you're really trying to be present. And as you were saying, be present, I felt your pause and your deep presence. Like we connected, like
Yes.
be present, and we're like both like present. And then to be aware, and then to respond, right? Oh, look, I just repeated it back to you. I wasn't actually doing that on purpose. I was just trying to clarify, like, is that what you said?
It's intuitive.
Exactly. It's intuitive. And I, I do feel like before 2020, I would say, communication is everything. And now it's really quite divisive, and, you choose that side or this side or whatever. And I would really love to hear, with the globally minded parents, that was
Yes.
called. Yeah. So I know you have a really interesting story, like you're in Miami, but that's not where you started. So what's the why behind the globally minded, like you said something that was really cool. You said that you want people to understand that what was oneness versus sameness.
Oneness, not sameness.
Oneness, not sameness. So yeah,
Yes.
what was the kind of impetus for you to start this, and what's the joy and the passion behind the global minded parent?
So I don't know if I shared this with you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Great.
I grew up in Africa. I immigrated to England. I grew up, I'm Somali, so I grew up in the Somali culture. And the Somali culture was, I'm assuming most of it is now to predominantly Muslim. So I grew up Somali and Muslim, which is double conservative.
Okay.
Growing up that way. So no one expected that by my age right now, I would be married to a Jewish man in Miami, meditating and calling consciousness my religion. So,
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had some story there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, my own journey was pretty global. So I left Kenya, moved to London, where I really, at 19, started to explore who I really was becoming. And somehow that led me to mindfulness. And my first mindfulness class was a joke because I had no idea what I was expecting. And I sat down and the guy that was running the class had a whiteboard, and he had written the word nowhere on the board. And I looked at it and thought, okay. And everyone sat, got into position, started to meditate. I had never done this before. I was fixated on the word the whole 15 minutes. I couldn't let it go. Oh, was someone here before? Was that just here from before the class? It was really, I was wasting time. At some point, he addressed me and he said, "You want to come up?" I think something like that. I can't phrase exactly. And I said, no. So he got up, and between the word now and here, he just placed a forward stroke.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And he didn't say a word. He sat back down, and I got it. And then 40 minutes later, when the class was over, he said, "And don't forget, if you're not in the now here, you are nowhere." And that,
so good.
yes.
I'm going to use that.
David,
Yes.
I didn't meditate. I sat with just the word nowhere and now here. So from that, I met my husband eventually, moved down to Miami. Here I am, the Somali African Muslim girl, or former Muslim girl.
Like, how old are you at this point?
Sorry?
How old are you at this point?
At that point, I'm 30.
Okay.
So by the time I'm moving here, I'm 30.
Okay.
I'm about to make what my girlfriends would then call juice-lims. Those are the children.
Oh. I love it. Okay.
I'm in Miami, and I'm hosting play dates in my house. And that's when the idea hit me. The babies were crawling in my living room. One was Brazilian, one was half Bulgarian, half German, one was half Colombian, half American, one was half Dutch, half American. We had all these little kids in my house, and the Brazilian friend was bringing Brazilian cheese bread, and everyone was, bringing something from their culture. And that's when it hit me. And it was the first time I looked at diversity, not from a skin tone perspective, but from a cultural standpoint. Every child in that room was from somewhere. 99% of them looked exactly the same, with slight variations, maybe dark hair, maybe blonde, maybe not. My kids are mixed. And I got this overwhelming I was filled with gratitude. I was filled with a kind of love I had not experienced before. And we were talking as if we were sisters that had known each other forever. Our children were mingling and crawling like they had known each other forever. And you could, on the surface, things were normal, but that room was so rich with culture, and there was zero judgment, and there was no focus on our differences, but you could tell our differences were being appreciated. My Bulgarian friend would bring something called Bulgarian toast.
Okay.
But I can't remember there was a word there before toast, and my daughter was obsessed with that. So here I was, African girl from Africa in Miami, raising half African, half American, with elements of Somali Islam background, and a Jewish father. And I was thinking, this is it. This is what the world needs to look like. And so when I started my work with Shefali, I remember thinking, okay, so when I say this is the word needs to look like, why do I need the world to look that way? You know, so that was the first time I started to question global-minded parents. Who is this for? Yeah. Am I desperate to create this for my children, or is this what the world really needs? Yeah. And the concept behind global-minded parents was to teach and share wisdom across the globe, and have a place where we are sharing wisdom from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from America, South America, Australia, where we are sharing wisdom all over the world. If it's about sleepless nights and breastfeeding, how are the Africans doing it? How is it being done in Asia? How is it, a collective place to share that? But also a place where we can use mindfulness as a global tool to give our children the skills they need to be authentic beings, or rather to remain authentic beings. So that was the second element. And number 3 was, how do we not make technology the enemy? How do we raise a generation of global children who can embrace technology, use it well, and be a friend of technology? Yeah. So those are the aspects. But now what I see is, I see mindful living, I see conscious living and leadership. Yep. I see technology, I see diversity, I see oneness. So I see all of it, and I feel like, we can create a place that anybody is welcome. Yep. A place where we celebrate parts of who I came this world as, who you came this world as, and celebrate all those aspects. Yes. And I finally saw why I didn't see it at that point, when it was a time when some of my friends would say, I really get offended when someone says I don't see color. And I would say, but what they're trying to say is, I see your essence. Right. I see who you really are. Right. But I got it. With that, I think that the fact that we were truly celebrating our children's heritage made me realize, wait, let's see each other. Yes. Let's see one another. Let's see what we're about. Yes. And by that, I mean, let's see our skills. Let's see our hearts. Let's see our minds. And let's see our color, and let's see our culture and religion. Whatever fires you up, I want to see it. Okay, so I'm so excited right now, because the way you told that story is so similar to the story that I have. And it's so funny, because I had this memory today. I must have known this was going to come up in this conversation, but this morning I had this memory when I was like in my 20s. I was traveling through Europe, and I'm obsessed with basketball. Like, I always wanted to be a basketball coach, like a professional or college basketball coach. And now I realize I just love coaching and teaching. Like, that's what I've always wanted to do. It was just like a different thing that you would fill. And it's like, oh, high school teaching, basketball, adults, coaching, principals. It was always just fill in the blank. It was always a different group, but I just love teaching and coaching. But I was sitting in, I want to say the Netherlands. I don't even remember which country. And I was like in my 20s, and I had this, what I now understand is like an intuitive guidance, which was like, you're going to work with people across the world. So the way I translated that in the moment, because I was sitting watching Europeans play basketball, like watching them, and I was thinking, oh, I want to go around the world coaching basketball, or like doing basketball camps or whatever. So that's what I thought I would do. But of course, then all the conditioning and everything, it's like, well, how are you going to do that? And are you really going to change countries every year and all that? But as you were telling the story, so the school that I started, it's all about diversity. And I'm really clear that it's not, sometimes people use the word diversity, like a person of color, like diversity, and they're really saying a person of color. And I'm like, no, we need to define what I mean by diversity. Is just like a lot of different cultures, ethnic groups, people, ideas, perspectives, and all that. And so as I was hearing you speak, though, I was like, yeah. And then why was I building that school? And I worked with a life coach for 5 years, and she'd always be like,
are you opening that elementary school because something within David? You know, she'd always do it very nicely. So your point of like, get
David.
Yeah, get Faiza out of the way. So I wish she would have actually been really direct with me and been like, you have inner child wounds and you need to deal with that inner child instead of going and starting a whole school to try and solve the problem. But either way, it was really cool because I did start a school. I've started multiple schools, as you know. But as I'm going on my next project, it's really about that international intuitive message I got when I was 20 something, which is now with the internet, like you said, now with technology, we can actually connect across the globe with people from so many different places. And it's actually, we're so interdependent, we know that. But with technology now and going through the Shafali course and with my, oh, it's 444 here. It's one of my favorite numbers. Of course, I'm making this point at 444, but the vision of Heart of the Matter is to actually connect all kinds of different people together across the world and to leverage the beauty of technology instead of being the enemy, like you said, but actually leveraging, like the friends I have from that 1 year course. I didn't actually do Year of Awakened Heart. I just did Year of Manifestation. And I actually came in a couple months late, but I ended up having, now I have friends all over the world. And it's so cool because I'm learning all these different perspectives, but I'm also learning that we're all basically the same at the end of the day, that we're all interconnected, we're all interdependent, and our essence is really the same, but it's all these things we kind of put on the outside that make us different. But of course that's important, you know? And so I think that's really, really cool. And I love the vision and I love the story that you had of like the kids sitting together, because when they're babies, there's actually a cool documentary, I think it's called Babies, about different babies in different countries. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the show notes.
Wait, it's an
old one. I think
yes,
it's maybe 10 or 15 years old. Yeah, it's like a San Francisco, it's like 5 different countries. Yeah, it's really cool, really cool. So when you were talking about that, I'm like, oh, it reminds me of that documentary. But anyway, so that's really, really exciting. So you're actually thinking about all these different facets now, and the global minded parent is one facet of your, like the real, it sounds to me like your real mission is around helping people with consciousness and mindfulness and leadership, communication, parenting. Like there's a lot here.
Yes.
It's all the same, but it's all not the same. But it's all different, but it's all the same, but it's all connected, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all different, but it's like you were saying, but it's the same. I think that as you and I, you know, travel through this journey, we will find that it evolves.
Yeah.
And every moment calls for something different.
Yes.
And I think that there is an urgency almost right now. And which is why we really need to put all our efforts into being conscious, being mindful, and also a huge effort into oneness. And I love what you said about diversity, because that's, I think in the past, that's what we've all thought about when we thought about diversity. It was always a person of color. Yeah. But my journey with diversity became, wait a minute, no. Diversity goes way deeper than that. And I remember teaching the kids when they were little that they had these IB, International Baccalaureate themes at school. And one of them is Share the Planet. And I used to tell them, okay, this goes into the model mommy has for diversity and how we all need to be one when we're not the same. And so we included people actually of different abilities in that bracket.
Yeah, you know? Exactly.
So there was a cafe actually in the neighborhood at the time that was the first one to hire people who have autism.
Oh, okay.
And so we used to frequent and support that. And we would say, our neighborhood just became more diverse.
Right, exactly.
You know, and it's just more, let's include. You know, we have so much to offer. And I think when one of them was younger, I can't remember if it was the older one or younger one, she came home upset about something with the girls and drama. And she said, Mommy, why do people act as if there isn't enough oxygen?
I love it.
Plenty of oxygen for all of us.
She has an abundance mindset. Yes. Instead of living in the city of scarcity, she's got an abundance mindset. Yeah.
And I think we've become that. I love what you said, city of scarcity. We've been conditioned to go out there and take care of number one. And because of that mindset, it's become, it's me or you.
Yes. It's a
you know?
thing. Yeah.
And there's a pause in there, right? And the pause is, wait, just wait. And then look at this. There's plenty for all of us.
Yes.
You know?
And, you know, I titled the podcast A Conscious Way Forward. And we were talking briefly before that. Everybody wanted me to do it about education. And then I was going to do it about leadership. And then I was like, wait a minute. I think it can be about leadership, education, and spirituality. And so that's what it ended up being. And I still get people say like, oh, it's two, it needs to be narrowed down. And I'm like, well, if I need to narrow it down at some point, I will, but I got to go with intuition here, people. And that's what I'm told to do. But it's a conscious way forward, because what I feel very strongly through my intuition is that the future is very different. And 2020 is the pulling the rug, you know, and showing us what's under all the darkness that's under the rug, and turning the table upside down. And the future, as we move to a conscious way forward, it's going to be about all different types of people coming together, right? And that's why 2020, we had to really look at our racist, systemic racism, right? And we had to really say like, let's really talk about this. And the diversity term, I remember I met Robin Williams at this fundraiser in San Francisco. And one of the women I met was telling me how she lived in Santa Cruz, and she kept saying, but there was a real diverse community. That made me nervous. And she kept saying it. And my wife and I had to walk away, because we're like, well, we don't want to make a scene with Robin Williams, but this is really awkward. But anyway, so as the future unfolds, it's going to be about more interconnectedness. It's going to be about more like communities coming together, less of the kind of top-down hierarchies. Everything's going to be more circular. And so I really love what you're working on, because I really do think that is the future. And it's a conscious way forward, because we're all, the planet is rising in consciousness, and you're either going to be on the boat or you're not. So, and sometimes you don't even know you're on the boat, because there's so much pain that you could be having to go through, until eventually you wake up and you decide that you're going to really start to, you know, come part of the conscious journey. But I really, really love what you're doing. And now I know why I'm talking to you, because we need you. So tell us about the, so we're recording this on 11/11, which is not a coincidence that we're doing this on 11/11. And it is probably, I don't know what date it'll be released, but in a few weeks. So tell us a little bit about the course, and like, do you have a start date yet, or is it still kind of in the works?
So I'm going to tell you about that, but I wanted to give you a little feedback about the conscious way forward. Something just came through me.
Beautiful.
So here's what I'm thinking. 2020 to me has become that dormant volcano. That lay dormant. We knew it wasn't fully dormant. It just hadn't erupted in many, many years.
Yep.
But we also know that for an eruption to occur, the conditions have to be right for it. The conditions have to be just perfect for that eruption.
Yes.
And I think it's safe to say we have erupted.
Yes.
The conscious way, the mindful way, the present way, it's only here, David.
Yes.
Not in the past.
Exactly.
Right? And think about everything we've talked about since I met you and this evening.
Yeah.
Let's talk about oneness. Let's talk about diversity. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about mindfulness. Let's talk about togetherness and inner child and healing and moving forward. It's all a conscious way forward.
Yep.
So I think that you actually nailed it. If this was about education or anything else, you would have narrowed it down too much. Things evolve.
Yes.
And things change. And what this moment is calling for is a conscious way forward.
Yes.
And,
and that's what I kept getting intuitively over and over and over. And all the experts kept telling me, because I went from schools to business. So as I was building Heart of the Matter and the podcast, and I was trying to ask the experts, like, what are you supposed to do? I've never done this before. And I was in so much resistance, and I joked and said, why couldn't you have told me this a year ago, Faiza? Then I would have saved so much suffering. But I had to go through the process. And this is actually what you have to do. You have to go through the process on your own, and you don't know it until you know it. You don't see it till you see it. Yeah. And, but it's really clear to me now. It's very, very clear to me now, especially with 2020, because when I was having the suffering of going through this and creating all the suffering, it was like, and the resistance, this was before 2020. And now that 2020 has come, I'm like, no, this is it. And it's really, really clear. why I'm doing this podcast, because I want people like you to be, for as many people to hear it as possible. And because I know that there's a team of us that are coming together to help humanity rise in consciousness. And that's the mission of Heart of the Matter. That's the other thing that I went back and forth on until everyone told me that shouldn't be the mission. It's too weird. And I'm like, okay. So, but it's the first thing on the website.
Yeah.
The mission is to help humanity rise in consciousness.
Yes.
So that's what I'm doing for my quick time on this planet.
Yes.
And I know you're on a similar journey, so it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have to do what we have to do in order to leave this planet and this universe in not to say better hands, but I truly believe that one, in sending the elevator back down, when you overcome, you have to remember that it's your responsibility to help others overcome.
Yes,
And
yes.
Absolutely. So I think that it's definitely important to leave this planet and this universe a better place than we found it.
Yes.
And leave your imprint there, something that will continue to do good long after we're gone. So, and I think that's why I'm focused on different facets of being a mindfulness facilitator. So I thought, what is being called for right now? What are we being asked to do? And I think what we're being asked to do is just to hear each other out.
Yes.
You know, it's at the very basic level right now. I think the bar is so low when it comes to where humanity has gone in the last few months. We've had COVID. We've had a real struggle for a lot of people. People have lost lives. People have lost jobs. So I feel like empathy is needed, compassion is needed. But at the very basic level, we need to see each other again. We need to hear each other again, and we need to reconnect, and then we can transcend just a little bit. So I figured I will likely have different installments of mindfulness being facilitated, but I really wanted the first one to be on mindful dialogue and communication.
Oh, beautiful.
So the hope is right now I'm actually working on the flyer. I'm working on the website.
Okay, great.
And it'll be done by Zoom.
Okay.
It'll be a little circle of connection that's unfolding via Zoom. And my goal is to have it up and running so that the first session is December 1st.
Oh, cool. Okay, so this could be timed really well. Yeah, like when this podcast comes out. But okay, December 1st.
Yes, so I'd really love for people to find a meaningful way to connect. And it's there, it's inside.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just to tap into it and have a meaningful holiday break.
Yes.
And recharge and reconnect and come back ready for more. And then we can decide what the moment needs in January and curate another one from there. But for now, I am really feeling the need for just seeing each other, seeing each other and connecting.
No, I think that's so beautiful. And as you were talking, I could see you doing this in so many different places. I was like, she could do this in the corporate world. She could do this at schools. She could do this like being a mindfulness facilitator. I just saw it all unfolding. And that's what happens to me. I just see it. So I don't know what that means because it's hard to translate what the message I just got, but it's something about you doing it in a lot of different places. So
thank you. I'm really hoping to take this into schools. And I took a couple of courses through mindfulschools.org.
Oh, great. Oh, you told me,
And the way their program works is that you have a lot of teachers on the program.
Okay.
And you have to pair up with someone. So it was, for every assignment, you have to pair up with someone. I mean, every week you have to pair up with someone. So it was really great to just get that feedback from teachers and educators and see them taking this back into the classroom.
Yes.
So I definitely plan to lead a few sessions locally in our schools next semester.
Oh, and schools are great because schools are ready for this type of work because it's such a heart-centered place that they're ready for this. And sometimes the heart is lost through the bureaucracy and the politics, but the teachers always are filled with heart and they'll be ready for this. So that's really, really cool. And it is, it's just, no, I can see this. This is great. This is great. Oh, and I was gonna say, it's so needed because I remember when I was first starting my charter school here in Sacramento and there's always a lot of division in the charter schools versus the traditional public schools and the districts and all that. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with it. That's not me, you know? And the first night we were like trying to go in front of the school board, and we had like gotten someone to serve hot dogs and stuff. And we were kind of having like a party in the parking lot of the school district before the school board meeting. And one of the employees from the district just walked up to my director of operations, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And then she said, "Oh, we're trying to start a charter school." And then he just made a really rude comment. And then she made a rude comment back to him and said, you need to stop talking to me." And at that moment, I was like, that's not what this school is going to be about. Like, I'm not going to be the school. We're not going to be the division. We're not playing that. And I remember Barack Obama, when I was talking about this, like, are you tired of the same old arguments, the same old conversations, the same old division, the same old? And it was that moment when I was like, this school I open, even in the most difficult political battles where anyone from the school district is going to see us as a threat, and they're going to walk up to us in the parking lot and start cussing us out, basically what they did. And I'm like, if I had talked to him, I would have been like, so can I get to know you a little bit better? Can I understand, like, are you a teacher? Were you a teacher? Do you love kids? I love kids. You know, and I have this conversation with a lot of my friends that are in the traditional schools, and I just say, like, we're doing the same thing. And then, you know, of course we know each other, so they get there quickly, but that's so what you're doing, it makes me so hopeful and happy and excited, because I just think that example of me having that divisive interaction, or me observing it, is what happens all the time. And now it's really heightened and accelerated and escalated in 2020. And it's just showing us that the same old is, everything's changing. And so we need people like you and people that are listening. A lot of my listeners are the people that also have these types of ideas. And I'm always encouraging them, like, go for it, just try it, do it, because we need anyone who's done work on themselves, like you said, Faiza, taking you out of and asking, is this for the world? And if the answer is yes, and you got the intuitive yes, like, I really want to encourage people just to go for it, because it's all these little things that will keep you know, continuing to grow and create all these beautiful things for humanity, because it's what we need.
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, for me, taking me out of the equation has just been the most empowering thing. You know, it just put me in that space. If my kids need something, I question myself over and over. Is this, what's my agenda? What do I really want to, you know what I mean? Am I doing this for me? Or is this for them? Am I doing this so that I can feel like I'm a great mom? You know, or is this really for their development? Or is this really for their benefit, for their growth, for their essence?
Right.
So, you know, when we take us out of the equation, I think magic happens.
Yes, that is, I hope that's like the thing that people take away. There's so many cool things that we talked about, but well, I'm going to wrap us up. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we close out from this conversation?
Oh, I think it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. The course name will likely be Mindful Dialogue During Stressful Times.
Oh, yes.
I polled my Facebook group. I do have a Facebook group, and it's called Parents Mindfulling and Stumbling During a Pandemic.
Yes, and I'm on it, and it's so good. And I tell Faiza, I'm the professional educator, and I learned so much from the stuff she posts about the schools. And I'll be telling someone at the school, like, oh, do you know what happened in Miami with the kid that, you know, like hacked into the whole system? Like, I get a lot of good information, and they think that I'm really well read, but I just look at your Facebook group. So it's a great group.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I polled the group, and I think the winning title is Mindful Dialogue During Stressful Times. So we will talk about that. I thank you so much for hosting me, David. I think that we need each other. We need our voices out there.
Yes.
And get your voices out there. I think that's what David is asking of you. David is saying, take that leap. You have something to offer the world. Just do it.
That's exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking people to be their authentic selves and to take the quantum leap. So if you got the intuitive tug, just go for it, because this is the time is now. Now, here. What is it? Now, here. Now, here.
Now, here. If you're not in the now, here, you are nowhere.
Nowhere. Yes.
And I'm going to add this. If this little girl that grew up in a little village in Africa can travel the world and transform her life in ways that she never saw possible,
Yes.
and can come to a place of so much love, having been brought up in a space that was loving, but also full of judgment and full of restriction of religion and culture and non-acceptance. Boy, can we transcend together.
Ah, yes, Faiza. Yes, 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 yes. That is a great way to end. No excuses, people. Just kidding. All right. Thank you so much, Faiza.
Work done.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you.
What a pleasure this has been. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.